for 5 minutes in support of his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My amendment would ensure that the National Telecommunications Information Administration follow the law and connect all Americans to high-speed, reliable internet as required by Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, or BEAD. Specifically, my amendment would require NTIA to certify that all BEAD projects that it has approved can meet the needs of the future and build networks that are fast and reliable. And it requires NTIA to provide evidence to support those decisions. In January of this year, Louisiana became the first state in the nation to secure federal approval for our plans to deploy $1.3 billion in BEAD funding. This achievement is a testament to the bipartisan nature of Louisiana's approach to universal connectivity. The state was ready to have shovels in the ground in March and completed its plan under Republican Governor Jeff Landry, who called the program a generational investment that will create thousands of jobs, drive billions in economic growth, and transform Louisiana's communities in all 64 parishes. Unfortunately, the Trump administration has spent the last 12 months sabotaging the BEAD program, upending years of planning and forcing all states, including Louisiana, to scrap their work and to start over. The Trump administration has increasingly veered away from the statutory language of bipartisan infrastructure law, changing the BEAD program to prioritize short-term cost savings and Elon Musk's Starlink over faster, more reliable, future-proof connectivity of fiber networks. While Louisiana's new plan for BEAD-funded infrastructure deployment has finally been approved, again, under the Trump administration's new rules, many Louisianans will now receive second-tier internet service. Our country's wireless spectrum constraints are bad enough as it is. I cannot see the wisdom in adding millions of additional households to our capacity-constrained networks, especially given the fact that there are other, better options at our disposal. My amendment is about preventing waste, fraud, and abuse of taxpayers' dollars that come with very specific instructions from Congress. Additionally, an estimated $800 million in BEAD funding allocated to Louisiana that the state has planned to use for non-deployment initiatives remains in limbo, awaiting further guidance from NTIA. This is truly unacceptable. Everyone, regardless of zip code, deserves access to affordable, reliable, high-speed internet, especially in rural and underserved communities that have already gone far too long without it. My dear colleagues, I urge you to vote yes on my amendment, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Is there further discussion on the amendment? What purpose the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition?
Wish to speak against the amendment.
Gentleman is recognized to speak on the amendment.
Thank you, Chairman, and I want to thank my friend and colleague from Louisiana. I know he and I share the same goal, which is to get as many people on broadband, get as much access, particularly in the rural areas that he and I represent in North Carolina and Louisiana. And so I appreciate the spirit with which he offered this amendment, but I think I think that we should oppose this amendment. Look, the BEAD program was authorized by the Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act. It was written to be technology neutral, so states could determine which technologies work best for them to close the digital divide. Unfortunately, the Biden-Harris administration did not run the program in a technology neutral way, delaying the program for years and adding burdensome regulations that added billions of dollars in cost and did nothing to help connect Americans. The Trump administration's NTIA course corrected, returning the program to tech neutrality. As part of the state broadband plan, states made determinations about what technologies best reliably serve their communities based on their unique challenges. BEAD funds are already on the way out the door. In fact, 29 states and territories' broadband plans have been approved by NTIA. Delaying enactment of legislation would keep our constituents from getting the connectivity they need. So I oppose this amendment. I encourage my colleagues to vote no, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Is there further discussion on the amendment?
Mr. Chairman,
What person, the lady from California, seek recognition?
I move to strike the last word and speak in support of the
The lady
amendment.
is recognized.
Thank you. This common sense amendment makes sure the billions of dollars that Congress invested in the BEAD program do their job, delivering long-lasting, high-quality internet to the tens of millions of Americans still without a reliable connection. It's simple. It holds the Trump administration to the law. It stops NTI from ignoring the bipartisan infrastructure law's rules that BEAD-funded networks deliver fast, dependable, and scalable broadband. This amendment should be an easy yes for my Republican colleagues. But once again, they rather bend the knee to Trump, letting him give handouts to his buddies with the cheapest technologies, while turning their backs on the evolving connectivity needs of their constituents, families, and businesses. Trump's NTIA steamrolling states and local experts, strong-arming them into rebidding broadband projects at rates that result in under-delivering service while keeping the cost calculations mostly in the dark. Americans deserve better. We need smart broadband investments that will last, not short-term fixes that leave communities behind and cost taxpayers more in the long run. That's especially clear in my district, where communities in the California Delta are still living with dead zones and unreliable service, even as they power our state's agricultural economy. BEAD was intended to change that by finally delivering stable, high-quality broadband these families can count on day in and day out. But instead of focusing on what matters, programs like BEAD, the real backbone of our national broadband strategy, Republicans are focusing on permitting rubber stamps. We must get BEAD back on track and hold NTI's feet to the fire when it comes to directing our federal dollars toward fast, reliable networks that can keep up with Americans' changing connectivity needs. With that, I urge my colleagues to support the amendment, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlelady yields back. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Any further discussion on the amendment? Gentlelady from Virginia, what person is recognized to speak on the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to remind my colleagues that when the BEAD program was established, Congress also mandated that federally funded broadband networks must be scalable and reliable, that they must meet the ever-growing upload and download needs of businesses and consumers. And that's why the statute directed NTIA to define a priority project as one that is scalable to meet current and future broadband needs and support 5G and 6G technologies. And while the Trump administration now prefers a low-cost alternative, not all technologies are created equal. Not all technologies are capable of meeting the ever-increasing upload and download needs of consumers and businesses. Technologies like Starlink and fixed wireless, in many cases, are inadequate to meet these needs. And in fact, when Elon Musk builds a factory, he doesn't connect it with Starlink, he connects it with the fiber connection. And particularly in our rural communities, they want fiber. Not satellite or fixed wireless, because they say that that's what meets their needs, and they have the experience getting the short end of the stick. And so, yes, the BEAD program is supposed to be technology neutral, but it also needs to make sure that that technology is scalable, reliable, and will meet the needs not just of today, but of tomorrow. And so including this amendment to make sure that NTIA certifies that whatever technology is used for broadband projects will be scalable is basically saying, NTIA, do the job that Congress told you to do when we created BEAD to begin with, not follow the Trump administration's desire to solely use a low-cost alternative, because the fact of the matter is the areas of this country that are not yet connected, they're not connected because it's more expensive to connect them. But that doesn't mean that they should have a technology that does not give them the same reliability that other parts of the country give back. And I think this amendment is a reasonable way to strike that balance, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from Texas is recognized to speak on the amendment.
Thank you. Move to strike the last word. Look, I'm not on the subcommittee where this bill came out of, but I've been listening to this debate, and I find it interesting when I see debates where folks are just talking past each other, like you're playing tennis in two different courts. I don't feel like anybody has addressed Mr. Griffith's points, and it's really simple. The shot clock just means you can deny it. Nobody has addressed that very simple point. And by the way, that's within 150 days. This isn't like a 2-week shot clock. This isn't some unreasonable idea. This is a measure to force communication between entities, which is often a problem we see across government. This is why we use the whole shot clock policy idea on many fronts, because it forces a conversation. As Mr. Griffith has pointed out, the local government can simply deny it and say, you need more information. This is not an infringement on local rights. It's trying to help people get what they need, which I thought we all agreed upon. And I fail to see why this is such a contested issue. I really do. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing no discussion on the amendment, the question now occurs on adopting the amendment. A roll call vote has been requested, and the clerk shall call the roll.
Mr. Latta? Mr. Griffith? Mr. Griffith votes no. Mr. Bilirakis? Mr. Bilirakis votes no. Mr. Hudson? Mr. Hudson votes no. Mr. Carter of Georgia? Mr. Carter of Georgia votes no. Mr. Palmer? Mr. Dunn? Mr. Dunn votes no. Mr. Crenshaw? Mr. Crenshaw votes no. Mr. Joyce? Mr. Joyce votes no. Mr. Weber? Mr. Weber votes no. Mr. Allen? Mr. Allen votes no. Mr. Balderson? Mr. Balderson votes no. Mr. Fulcher? Mr. Fulcher votes no. Mr. Pfluger? Mr. Pfluger votes no. Mrs. Harshbarger? Mrs. Harshbarger votes no. Mrs. Miller-Meeks? Mrs. Miller-Meeks votes no. Mrs. Kamick? Mrs. Kamick votes no. Mr. Obernolte? Mr. Obernolte votes no. Mr. James? Mr. Bentz? Mr. Bentz votes no. Mrs. Houchin? Mr. Fry? Mr. Fry votes no. Ms. Lee? Ms. Lee votes no. Mr. Langworthy? Mr. Langworthy votes no. Mr. Kane? Mr. Ruley? Mr. Ruley votes no. Mr. Evans? Mr. Evans votes no. Mr. Goldman? Mr. Goldman votes no. Mrs. Fedorchak? Mrs. Fedorchak votes no. Mr. Pallone? Mr. Pallone votes aye. Mr. Gett? Mr. Gett votes aye. Ms. Schakowsky? Ms. Schakowsky votes aye. Ms. Matsui? Ms. Matsui votes aye. Ms. Castor? Ms. Castor votes aye. Mr. Tonko? Mr. Tonko votes aye. Ms. Clark? Ms. Clark votes aye. Mr. Ruiz? Mr. Ruiz votes aye. Mr. Peters? Mr. Peters votes aye. Mrs. Dingle? Mrs. Dingle votes aye. Mr. Veazey? Mr. Veazey votes aye. Ms. Kelly? Ms. Kelly votes aye. Ms. Barragan? Ms. Barragan votes aye. Mr. Soto? Mr. Soto votes aye. Ms. Schreier? Ms. Schreier votes aye. Mr. Han? Mr. Han? Mr. Han votes aye. Ms. Fletcher? Ms. Fletcher votes aye. Ms. Ocasio-Cortez? Ms. Ocasio-Cortez votes aye. Mr. Auchincloss? Mr. Auchincloss votes aye. Mr. Carter of Louisiana? Mr. Carter of Louisiana votes aye. Mr. Menendez? Mr. Menendez votes aye. Mr. Mullen? Mr. Mullen votes aye. Mr. Landsman? Mr. Landsman votes aye. Ms. McClellan? Ms. McClellan votes aye. Chairman Guthrie? Chairman Guthrie votes no. Mr. Latta is not recorded. Mr. Latta votes no.
Mr. James?
Mr. James is not recorded. Mr. James votes no.
Ms. Houchin?
Mrs. Houchin is not recorded. Mrs. Houchin votes no.
Anyone on the Democrat side seeking recognition to vote? Everybody, okay. Seeing none, the clerk will report the result.
Mr. Chairman, on that vote, there were 24 ayes and 28 noes.
The amendment is not agreed to. Are there further amendments? The lady from California, what will you seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk. It's
Identify
labeled
the amendment.
Consumer_02.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment to the committee print for HR 2289, page 100, after line 18.
Without objection, the reading of the amendment is dispensed with, and the gentlelady from California is recognized for 5 minutes in support of the amendment.
Thank you. I'm offering this amendment today to ensure that American families share in the cost savings created by this bill. If Congress is helping companies cut costs, then families should see lower bills each month. And that's important because in today's digital age, home internet access is not a luxury, it's a basic necessity. It's essential for student success. Homework, class materials, and tutoring are all online, not just during the school day, but in the evenings, on weekends, and over breaks. Broadband also serves as a lifeline to healthcare. Telehealth allows patients, especially in rural communities, to see providers without traveling hours or waiting months for an appointment with the nearest specialist. It opens doors to job searches, online applications, remote work, and the digital economy. We all agree high-speed internet is critical for participation in modern life. Yet in 2025, nearly 6.8 million households still lack reliable internet. Why? Because most families simply cannot afford it. Let me tell you about Terry Johnson, a dedicated mother determined to keep her daughter, Quintona, on track at school. In 2020, the COVID pandemic hit, and Quintona's entire world shifted online. She tried to keep up in virtual school using her cell phone, but her data plan wasn't up to the task. So Terry took Quintona and her 3 small children to a McDonald's parking lot where the whole family sat for hours so that her oldest daughter could connect to free internet to do her schoolwork. Schools like this are all too common. Since COVID, a lot has happened. Congress created the Affordable Connectivity Program, providing a $30 per month subsidy so low-income families could finally afford home internet. But Republicans refused to work with Democrats to keep the program funded, and those subsidies vanished. Under a Democratic FCC chair, the FCC helped schools and libraries lend out mobile internet devices free of charge, a program that Trump's FCC chair quickly eliminated. My home state of California stepped up with a $30 state internet service subsidy, but most states don't offer anything similar. And at the federal level, the only assistance available to low-income families is $9.25 per month. The average home internet bill in the US is $78. But we all know it's much higher in so many places across the country. And our federal affordability solution is $9.25. That's unacceptable. Right now, Congress is debating how to reform the FCC's Universal Service Fund, a fund designed for one purpose. It's to ensure that every American can access high-speed internet. There is a simple way to achieve that goal. Make sure people can afford it. That's why I urge you to support this amendment. To my colleagues across the aisle, if this committee is going to give companies new savings, then we owe it to families to make sure those savings show up on their bills. It's not partisan. It's about doing the right thing when for the people that we represent. Families are struggling with the cost of everything, including internet service. They shouldn't have to wait any longer for Congress to get this back, to get this right. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Is there any other further discussion on the amendment? Gentleman from North Carolina is recognized for 5 minutes on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Listen, I know this amendment is well-intended, but it looks a lot like rate regulation. And the last thing the federal government needs to be doing is telling providers how to set their own rates. Additionally, many providers already have affordable plans available for those who need it. Many of the areas that will benefit from the reforms here are currently unserved. That would mean there is no cost savings to offer them should this amendment be adopted anyway. And that's really what we're focusing on is how do we get to those unserved areas? How do we get broadband access to the folks who have been waiting too long? Cutting red tape and accelerating deployment will reduce deployment costs and ensure that providers can offer services at the best possible rates so that mothers like Terry don't have to go to McDonald's to get internet access, that they can have access to broadband in their homes. That's the whole point. And so we want to get Terry, people like Terry in rural areas across this country, that access as quickly as possible. So I oppose this amendment. I encourage my colleagues to vote no, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Is there further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, the question is on the amendment. The roll call has been requested, and the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Lotta? Mr. Lotta votes no. Mr. Griffith? Mr. Bilirakis? Mr. Hudson? Mr. Hudson votes no. Mr. Carter of Georgia?